And if you're not following Mr. Goat and Mr. Remy Rai or myself, Canna Crypto Pope, on Twitter, give us a follow. It gives us the incentive to do this and provide this information for you. But I'll hand it right back to Mr. Goat. That's my 2 cents on the total market cap.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned alts. I'm going to show you a chart that I've drawn up on the monthly on the Bitcoin dominance now. It's can you see my screen right now, guys? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, brother.
So what you're looking at right now is the Bitcoin dominance on the monthly time frame. And whenever the Bitcoin dominance is bearish, that means that money is leaving Bitcoin and it's moving into altcoins. Okay. And historically, whenever we had this bearish period, this aggressive bearish period on a monthly time frame, there's been an aggressive move on the alts. So money has been leaving Bitcoin and moving into alts. And the one time it happened in March 2017, and one time it happened in January 2021. And it looks like we pulled back towards the area where Bitcoin dominance previously aggressively got sold off in the previous alt season. And we call this the monthly supply. So we're back into the monthly supply again, as you can see, and it's wicked into it, and it's been rejected slightly. And I'm kind of wondering, are we close to another alt season? Because and if you look at the volume as well, look how similar it looks now to the previous alt season as well. It looks like the volume is rising in this area again. And RSI is also in a very overbought area as well. It's crossed the 80% mark. Volatility is also rising, as you can see. It's making me wonder, are we very close? So we are still above the 10 and 20 moving averages right now. So we need to see kind of like a big drop. As we kind of mentioned as well before, we are in this downward trend, right, Kenna? So we need to.
For the dominance, we're in an upward trend. But I know you meant you're just fumbling. Like, I'll show you. Like, I've had this on the charts for ages. This channel, and this here was our last. This big dip over here was our last alt run, right? And then we consolidated some manipulation, and then this here is where we had our break of structure to the upside. And when in November we had this nice little play here, and we saw the alts run, XRP, ADA, blah blah blah, and everybody was like, "It's alt season, it's alt season," and I kept telling everybody, "No, it's not, because we haven't broke this bottom channel." And I haven't touched this parallel channel in eons. And if we look at where we're at now, if we were to extend it, this is on the 3 days. So 9 days ago, when everybody hit panic, look, it just clipped the top of that channel, right? Mm-hmm. So you can see right there, if we extend it, it hit it. And now what we want to see in dominance is just like a micro bear, how we want to see a curl for entries. For dominance, we want to see a curl to the downside, and then this will start to come down, and then we need to retest this channel before we get an alt season here. So as soon as we can bounce and go down, we're in an alt season. But like you just said, stochastic RSI is high. This is telling us we have movement to the downside. RSI is just under that 80-ish area that you were talking about, which is, telling us we have movement to the downside. And that's exactly what we want to see when it comes to the dominance.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Ryan, what's your thoughts on this, man? Like, what do you think?
I completely agree with you guys. I think obviously I missed last week's session. Obviously, I think the main talking point over the last, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks, and why we saw maybe a Bitcoin drop was obviously fundamentally based as well. I know there's been talks about Chinese AI and DeepSeek, and I missed that session that you guys had and you talked about it, which caused like a lot of panic in the market. And when I was kind of like just doing my research and in regards to DeepSeek, it did seem a little bit like market manipulation to me. It did seem like, Trump just got into power, was hovering around 109K when he was in power. And then all of a sudden, boom, straight away, DeepSeek AI comes in. What I kind of was looking at as well, if you want to share my screen, kind of something that's quite interesting, something that we've been speaking about, myself and Amir, recently is the legendary Nancy Pelosi, who's always ahead of the market. She always sells when the time's right, and she always buys when the time's right.
She's a
So
criminal, man.
she must have a crystal ball or something, no insider information or anything like that. But yeah, no, she sold her Nvidia stocks. I think it was in January 21st, the 21st of January. And, you know, that is way before anything or any indicators on the market that were showing signs of a downtrend. Look at she sold her Nvidia stocks, which was quite a lot. You know, all of her tech stocks, she sold over 30 million. Which is insanity, you know. And there's a lot of people that actually follow her calls as well. So whenever she trades, she actually, you know, has a lot of people that are following her calls. I think you can follow her trading portfolio online. But what I was kind of looking for as well within this piece, as it was coming down, I was looking for some market stability. I was looking for some news. So the first thing that kind of like hit my radar was the signing of the United States Sovereign Wealth Fund. So this was what Donald Trump signed. It was a sovereign wealth fund, and the sovereign wealth fund is, you know, accumulating all the money from like foreign exchange, accumulating some of the money from gold, and starting to put it into some assets. Like, let's say they want to buy TikTok using the sovereign wealth fund, and apparently they want to start buying some Bitcoin and Ethereum with the sovereign wealth fund. So as we started seeing like the downtrend in the market, I think February 3rd, off the top of my head, is when we started to see a little bit of a relief. And, you know, this is signs of market manipulation for me. You know, we saw downtrends in the market due to mass media storm of AI and everyone selling. And then all of a sudden, we started to see like some relief. And I think it happened on February 3rd. If someone's got a chart, they can probably see it. On the 3rd of February, we probably saw some relief when Donald Trump signed this sovereign wealth fund. So I think there's a lot of indicators in the market that are kind of like looking towards Donald Trump and looking at what he's doing with some of his executive orders and what the Fed are doing. And I think that's like the main driving force for the price of Bitcoin this cycle, alongside with the Bitcoin strategic reserves. There's been no news on that, and there's been like slight indicators on it actually happening. But I think it's one of those things that as the market kind of like matures a little bit, if there's no news around it or surrounding it, we might start seeing some stale price action until something actually happens. And as soon as that happens, yeah, we're good. We're good to the races. So yeah, I think this is something that people should look at. You know, I've retweeted it on my page as well, where Donald Trump actually signed the sovereign wealth fund, and there's a lot of information surrounding it. I don't take up too much time of this podcast, but everything's been retweeted on my page. And yeah, you want to look at what's happening in the overall market on the macro side. There's a lot of people that were complaining, saying it's the bear market. It's the bear market. I've had those messages as well, kind of. But we're completely far away from that. We're nowhere near a specific bear market. I'd say it's just a small, slight pullback as these big industries start loading back up. And as they load back up, they'll be pulling in some of these executive orders like the sovereign wealth fund and Bitcoin strategic reserves to actually pump the price back up again. So it's the perfect time to load up your dips. That's all I gotta say.
And if you look at this,
go ahead.
I was just going to add a small thing. If you can share my screen, if you also look at the fear and greed index, we are nowhere close to greed right now. You know, so this is also telling us, as an indication.
You took it out of my mouth. This just reset the fear and greed. So this was actually a decent thing to happen in the markets. We had massive growth. We were at all-time high. Nobody really talked about that we were in all-time highs, the total market cap of crypto and all this stuff. And when things are pumping, everybody is like, woohoo, bull run, we're all going to the moon, you know? And then any slight correction or retracement to find resistance and to support, people panic. But that's healthy when we reset the fear and greed, because now it's enabled us to lift off even more. And you just brought up Bitcoin, so I'm going to add Bitcoin to the screen here. And same thing, our drawings from a few weeks ago are still on here. And this little arrow here was when that Sunday show, when we said, let's guess the price of Bitcoin to come and the resistance level. And I said 106,420 for the culture, but that's where I was seeing it. And we hit it a few, I don't know, what is that, 3 candles later, rejected right off it, blew past it. And then you can see this level has actually become resistance, you know? And then when we look at, okay, the compression, like we were talking about before, we were looking for a breakout. We wanted a breakout and a retest over this line. But of course, we went down and we actually broke the 200 EMA, was able to come up. And now we're below it. And now remember, this is on the 4 hour. We're still above it on the zoomed out time frame. This is no reason to panic. But this here was the Trump tariff wars against the rest of the world, or a good part. And I think we're talking about that in a little bit. Yeah. But you said it was February 3rd, that article. And so one of NFAOFC's indicators is critical greed, critical fear. Greed's telling you to get out of the market here. Fear here is telling you to get into the market. And you can see on the 3rd, which is right here, is where it started to pump again. And same thing that we were talking before. We have our, we've come down. Here's our triangle. We're bouncing out and around it. And then now it's time to lift off. Exactly. And what we have too, when we look at my other indicators, is micro bear, getting ready to switch into a micro bull and move to the upside. Stochastic has been confused as fuck in this entire consolidation area. And RSI is smack dab in the middle. So I think a little compression in this rectangle here is where we'll see. Then we'll need to retest on top of it before we break. But it is Bitcoin. It can just do this in the drop of a hat in a few hours. So I never, ever want to rule that out of the situation either.
Agreed. Completely agreed. Yeah, that February 3rd is when